system, most of the way aid has gone to the development and not to foster a conducive environment for innovation in Africa. Therefore, if I respond to the question that the organizer has put before us, can agriculture become an engine for growth? As an agronomist, I would say yes, and most definitely. Yes, Africa has the potential, and agriculture can become a huge engine for growth in a number of areas. But I see that we have to act in at least three different levels. One is at governance level, where we have to do upgrade our production system. When we look most from Switzerland, just to give an example of how we are being unable to add value to our products. But link the government, applied research is an important element I call extension. Maria has worked with the farmer, knows that the role of extension in terms of technology transfer, but in terms of helping the farmers to organize. Some of the examples, practical examples, shared this morning by Dr. Julius and Dr. George, clearly illustrate that the farmers in Africa we need to organize so we can have a stronger voice. And when it comes to the boards and the commodity boards and so on, farmers can have a stronger voice to really lead the policy change that we need. Of course, all of this is energy intensive. We have been following the discussion at an international level when we talk about development of a number of sectors in Africa. There is a flag raising in terms of climate change. We really have to be energy efficient. Energy has to be the source for the entire production system in Africa to develop and ensure that this development is shared for the social good. And in the whole process, I think that we really have to look at the pillar of sustainable development, looking not only at social, economic, but also taking care of the environment for the sustainable good of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for that very good point. I think before we move to the last two questions, one point you raised in the area of sustainable development, it's really the interaction between climate change and agricultural innovations. I think one key question that we have, especially in this continent where it's often said that Africa is actually more exposed to adverse weather events than to the rest of the world, it will make sense for us to a certain extent look at what extent could innovations actually mitigate the climate change effect on this continent or enhance climate change adaptations. This is something we've not yet covered by our two panelists, but which comes across in your questions as something very strong that we should actually revisit. But let me pass on the floor to you, and then to Mwangi, and you are the last two speakers, unless there is someone before we get back to you. And then, yes, last three speakers. But be brief, please, because we are running out of time, and our interpreter may be already exhausted.
I am Abdul Jabbar from the Gambia. I think I'll be very, very brief. As an investor and business developer, I'm the first one in this area of Africa to start recycling the ground of trees, which is the shelf which it protects, completely privately financed. Policies were fantastic before I started. I read all the forest policies and development policies in our country. Since I've started, of course, the next few days you'll get to know about all the issues that an immigrator like myself has to face. But the first thing I would say is that we Africans have always been looking too far away. We've got a lot of innovators right down here in our midst, but it's always been a bit more profitable to look somewhere else, travel somewhere else, and support other businesses, as in making money on the side. We need to start. The first step is stop. We have to start looking at Africans like this lovely lady said before. We have to start supporting the Africans that are trying to develop Africa. At the end of the day, nobody else can do it for us. I've been to about 7 of these forums the last 3 years. Pretoria, Istanbul, Sochi, here, Spain, 3 months ago. And it's always been money available to sit down and discuss about how to get things better. But when it comes to us listening to the call that the organizations have been saying for the last 20 years, private sector come in, private sector invest into renewable energy, Gambians, Africans, do it for your own country. Once you actually start believing it and you start doing it, then you find out that it's really only one problem. You should stop the self-cannibalism that goes on in your country. Once you start it, they're going to wipe you out. Example simple, Gambia. It was burning the peanut shells for 35 years. I started pressing briquettes 3 years ago. Became the leader, seat award winner, companies growing, 37 staff, 3 trucks, 2 machines, self-finance. For the first time in history, this year, they start selling the ground shells to Senegal for the cement factory to use it to heat up the cement. Once the Gambian tries to use it and needs it, then they start to sell it away. I mean, how would that make sense? Senegal allows only 20% of their natural resource to be used by industry. So Senegal is preserving their shells to give it to household energy use. The desert is coming in, Sahel, Gambia is one of them. We've just come up with a fantastic innovation, pressing 14 tons a day. This is about 8 or 9 big trees of firewood saved in the forest. This is the green belt that we're trying to protect. This is the forest we're trying to protect. Direct rainfall with deforestation is linked. Then they start selling the shells somewhere else. I mean, this is the self-cannibalism that is actually going on that we need to address and start supporting these private industrialists, private sector investors like myself and my colleagues to actually survive. Because if it's only left to our government and our areas, it's very difficult to survive. I mean, you need 2 or 3 businesses to be able to do this. My other business actually almost being drained out because I'm supporting green tech because of the difficulties that have been happening in the last 2 years. I think this is the first step. Start looking right next to us, right next door. All the innovators that they're very clever, they're very intelligent, give them the power, give them the opportunity, or support them from outside so that their direct officials will not be able to affect them that much. By empowering them, a little bit more power. I think that's the step we need to start before we move anywhere further.
It is a fundamental step which goes back to the issue of mindset. As you put it, they support only foreigners. They're not willing to support local Africans. I think it's something that has to come as a very strong recommendation from this committee. Let's get the last 2 speakers.
Thank you. Thank you, Hippolyte. My name is Mwangi. I'm from Kenya. I teach in Massachusetts, Brazil. I'm quickly going to address the 4 points, but I won't do it point by point. It's going to be around going back to our plea which we heard earlier today, and one which the panelists made in terms of thinking about the political economy of innovation. So first, in our thinking about innovation, I want us to really take both political economy of innovation seriously and take history seriously, because there are lessons to be learned there. And here I want to make my interjection through thinking slightly about the case study several times we were given, the interest. Other producers were the big T multinationals. It managed to push them aside. And in thinking of the political economy, then it's interesting, how do we think about what are the kind of institutions we make? And I actually want us to caution us from going the way of thinking that we can merge people with very different interests. So for example, the big and the small farmer. What we found in the Kenyan case is Kenya Tea Development Authority worked because it was specifically for small farmers. The Kenya Planters Cooperative Union, which was for coffee, where the big farmers and small farmers were put together, was hijacked by the big farmers, and the small farmers never got as much input as the large farmers, and that collapsed. So Kenya's, where we have the coffee is very well regarded, we've gone down from over 100,000 tons to now producing 18,000 or so tons, whereas tea keeps expanding. So it's important to think about the real political economy here. And that goes to the same thing with gender, you know. So it's finding both, figuring out what is a political economy, who benefits and who doesn't. And also for policymakers and for politicians, showing the political demand for the project. Thinking about it in those terms as well becomes important. Our challenges. I really want to encourage us to think of our challenges as opportunities. Because these things which today we're calling challenges, once you find the solution to them, they become opportunities either in the sense of real products for export or sometimes in terms of the spillover effects. And here coming to the cassava case and the fact that cassava, you have to get it out in 48 hours. The same thing happens with tea, which you have to get out in 24 hours. But to overcome that challenge, you build an infrastructure which has now, like roads, which then became the push to develop those areas. So you find in Kenya, tea areas do much better generally than other crop areas because they have this broader infrastructure. The last thing is, I want us to seriously think about what is innovation, because sometimes in listening, I'm hearing innovation being talked about only in the sense of the formal level of innovation. And we are missing out. African peasants have been innovating and continue to innovate, right? Just to survive. But we're not talking about how do we capture those innovations and spread those innovations so that they're taken advantage of. And this comes back to us learning from each other, one learning from our own countries, because there's so many different levels within our own countries, and then as Africans learning from each other, learning from our own success.
Thank you very much, Mwangi. I think there are 2 points that we have to be mindful of coming out of your excellent interventions. And one of them is the lessons learned from the Kenyan experience. And I would like to draw attention on the rural to urban migrations, which has been happening continent-wide, depleting rural area of its labor forces, and what are the implications of such a trend for agricultural innovations and productions in the regions and applications of innovations in area where production actually happen. The second point you're raising, which is also very fundamental, is the issue of the interaction between innovations and the valuations of indigenous knowledge, and which is something we have not really covered. But you have the last question. Please be brief so we can get back to our great panel to reflect on these questions. Thank you. And we have to close the next 5-10 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Francis Kyoko. I am with an innovation called iCal. And I just want to reflect on a few points that were made before by the lady from Mozambique. Firstly, I agree. Agriculture, especially food agriculture, is driven by women. Second thing is that it is driven by smallholder farmers. They are working on less than a hectare. Thirdly, women not only feed us, we marry them, they take care of our children, and they take our food to the market, and as such, they have no access to the formal knowledge infrastructure that we are saying we are in. And I can't remember who said the very first time that innovation is not necessarily technology. I think it was in the plenary. So when you take those aspects together, then you understand what the challenge is in terms of innovation and using innovation as a driver of agricultural expansion of agricultural efficiency and output. We need to empower those people. We need to get the knowledge we have to those people and empower them. In Kenya, if you look at the flour industry, or in Ethiopia, if you look at the flour industry, there. So we need to do that. So our innovation actually works by SMS because many of them do have phones. So when you empower them with information through that infrastructure, they sometimes get it. And we have been able to survey farmers who have used our technology, especially our power calendar, and see that they're able to improve the productivity of the production of milk production by up to 3 liters per day. This step will tell you, I will not do it. That's not the problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we've gone through a very vibrant and extensive exchange from every single one of us. Until now has come the time for us to hear from our panel. I think we have about 3 minutes each to reflect on these questions.
Thank you very much. I'll just select the ones that I think are relevant to what I said, and I will start by agreeing with Steve and Dr. Niege that the question of policy harmonization is extremely important, especially now that you're talking about certain reforms in government, so that in a place like Kenya, for example, moving from a highly centralized state to one that is more devolved. But also, if you put into that mix the idea that you also have in many African countries some form of agricultural practice. If you look at the commodity board that I discussed, each one of them, by the way, has a research and development institution attached to it. The Kenya Sugar Board has the Kenya Sugar Research Foundation. The Ghana Cocoa Board has CREE, the Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana. The Tea Development Authority has the Tea Research Foundation. And in the interviews that you have, you realize that there's very little already done by knowledge and where it is used. So it might boil down to institutional arrangements for brokering activities, institutional arrangements for intermediary work between producers and users of knowledge. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I again want to agree very much with Professor Mwangi that history is extremely important, and history teaches us that perhaps we could unlock some of these challenges by taking some very radical departures from perhaps what is conventional. The history of the tea subsector in Kenya shows that the move from the domination of the subsector by large-scale farmers to the increasing importance of small growers was a very radical shift. Actually, the kind of thing you might characterize as developing by deviating, sort of deviating from the norm. And that's also very much linked to the role of international organizations, because the problem, I think part of the problem we have with African agriculture in general is that at every epoch, at every time, you have a very specific definition of the African agricultural question by development, international development entities. At one time, it is value addition. That is the problem. Another time, it is mechanization. That is the problem. So I think we need to deviate, because if you're going to have only one question over agriculture, African agriculture, every time, it's going to be very difficult to transfer.
First of all, the whole idea of when you think of agriculture, you always tend to think innovation is really about years. It's just a small part of the equation. As I say, in cassava, the high yielding were always there. In fact, nobody took them up until they could develop the other parts, grading and so on. Farmers didn't take up and many things. So it's really about processing, it's about branding, it's about all the other things. So unless we start thinking more broadly about innovation, then we are not going anywhere. If you look at now, it's what you call the supermarket revolution. It's what is changing now. Supermarkets are capturing how much of the agricultural value? About 60-70%. But they're capturing through branding, through logistics, through other things. And they actually do helping farmers. If you look at the Nakumat, the farmers who are linked to Nakumat in Kenya, those farmers have been able to increase productivity, to increase investments and so on. So, but we never give these ideas a chance. And also there's an element of always looking at farmers as the victims in this system. But as I showed you, I used to start factory in Ghana has failed because farmers did not do what they're supposed to do. These poor farmers we're talking about, they also can be the processors are actually, as the processors they are saying, they can be victims in all these systems. And nobody really talks about processors. They are seen as these people who are out to exploit. And the other thing is that women. Okay, women, it's important, and I needed to highlight that a lot of times when you go into processing,
there has been a tendency to exclude women because you don't need a man to come and do the exclusion. So those things are very important. And the final thing is, when we talk again, the whole idea of how do you brand. To me, because I think that's where the whole thing lies. If you don't brand, you don't have a market. And the other example I wanted to give is Kenya. There's what you call sukuma wiki that is eaten by 4 million people, almost 4 million people every day. I have never heard of extension service for sukuma wiki farmers. There are no NGOs working there and what, and every day the market feeds. And these are the same women that we think don't know anything. But if markets work, things have work. So unless we really have innovation should be about getting markets. We should put less importance on agronomics and all those other things. Those things have been done. They take 50 years to get through. But markets are innovating. In the last 50 years, how much innovation has happened in supermarkets? Maybe equivalent to maybe 1,000 years in terms of agronomy. Yet that is really where we need to intervene. Thanks.
And timely support, not only for export crop, but especially for farmers, for women who are involved in driving the food that we consume in this part of the world. And it's also been highlighted that it's very important for African governments to actually engage and support more in-house research, not just providing the resources for export, but supporting research in the continent to make sure that innovation is homogeneous and grounded in continental reality. And this is actually something that should fit very well, given the stage of development in the regions, but also given experiences in other parts of the world. We all remember the Land Grant Act in the US, which actually, under President Lincoln, provided resources for agricultural universities to be established in each state, which positioned the US to become the leading country in the world in the 19th century. And that advantage, spurred by research in the 19th century, has continued to this day. So it's very important. Another issue which came up very strongly is the issue of policy coordination, policy consistency, and the need to avoid policy reversals. And this was actually highlighted in the cassava sector in Nigeria, whereby Obasanjo established a policy to increase demand for cassava and reduce import of wheat. Then subsequently there came and reversed the policy, with tremendous effect. This is something that we should actually avoid or try to avoid. In terms of success story, I think there have been some success story in the business community, but also among the farmers. I think some which were not mentioned, which I'll mention quickly, is the case of cultivate and probably increase the supply and production of coffee. These are some very good examples and good success stories, which should give us hope in terms of being more and more convinced that indeed it's not just because Africa has 60% of existing arable land, but because there are some emerging trends which could position Africa as a true engine for transformations over the coming decade. Thank you. Let's give a strong round of applause to and to thank our interpreter for their understanding and indulgence. We've gone beyond the 1 o'clock, and thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the lunch will be served at Factory Round.
Parce que les politiques d'innovation, c'est une affaire de quelques hommes d'affaires ou de quelques universitaires complètement cinglés du type le professeur Tournesol. Beaucoup ne savent pas que les politiques d'innovation doivent ou devraient être menées par le gouvernement. Ce n'est pas seulement le grand public. J'ai approché pendant toute ma carrière pratiquement tous les responsables politiques de l'Afrique, qu'ils soient francophones ou anglophones. En Afrique francophone surtout, mais aussi dans quelques pays d'Afrique anglophone, je me suis rendu compte que ces pays admiraient des résultats, des progrès spectaculaires en matière de développement faits par la Chine, le Brésil, l'Inde, et même par des petits pays comme la Corée du Sud, la Malaisie ou Singapour, mais ne réalisaient pas que ces pays-là ont mis l'innovation au cœur des politiques de développement. C'est pour cela qu'aujourd'hui, je suis très honorée de pouvoir présenter cette séance qui est consacrée aux leçons d'innovation qu'on peut tirer de l'hémisphère sud. Les organisateurs de ce sommet ont fait bien les choses. Ils ont choisi 3 pays, l'Inde, le Chili et le Mexique. Les panélistes qui sont ici vont nous faire part des expériences qui sont menées dans ces pays sous l'impulsion du gouvernement, mais aussi de voir comment cette impulsion donnée par les gouvernements se traduit sur le terrain, pas seulement dans le développement des nouvelles technologies, mais pour les populations en matière d'éducation, de santé, de transport, etc., dans tous les domaines. Je suis très heureuse de vous les présenter. Il y a tout d'abord, on va commencer par une dame quand même, Maria de Los Angeles, Navarro, Cameroun, et est l'une des directrices Maquillien, et dont l'objectif est d'attirer des entrepreneurs talentueux du monde entier pour qu'ils viennent travailler au Chili, on les finance pour qu'ils restent. Alors, je sais, elle m'a dit tout à l'heure qu'elle cherchait des jeunes entrepreneurs africains talentueux. Et moi, je lui demande de les laisser tranquilles pour le moment parce que l'Afrique en a besoin. Notre deuxième panéliste, il est là. C'est M. Frank Bartels. Il est conseiller auprès du directeur général adjoint de l'Organisation des Nations Unies pour le développement industriel. Donc on nous parlait plus beaucoup ces derniers temps. On est très content de l'avoir ici parce que si vous avez tous lu le document introductif de ce sommet, les responsables déplorent un peu le peu de pays africains qui disposent d'un système rudimentaire d'innovation. Ils déplorent le peu de contacts. Et ça, c'est quelque chose que vous avez pu tous constater dans vos pays. Très peu ou presque pas de contacts entre les universités, le monde des affaires, le tissu industriel, les décideurs et les financiers. On dirait que ce sont des unités qui travaillent de manière totalement autonome, chacun dans son coin. Et justement, l'ONUDI a mis en place une sorte de méthodologie qui permet de cartographier la situation de n'importe quel pays africain pour leur donner l'état exact de l'innovation, des relations entre les différents acteurs de l'innovation, qu'est le monde scientifique, le monde des affaires et les décideurs politiques. Il va nous parler justement de cette méthodologie. Et s'il y a ici des représentants des gouvernements, je ne sais pas, mais vous pouvez toujours leur en parler, parce que cette cartographie, elle est obtenue à la demande. Jusqu'à présent, je crois qu'il y a le Ghana qui dispose de cette cartographie. Il y a aussi le Kenya qui a fait une demande, mais je crois que la cartographie n'est pas encore faite. Donc là aussi, c'est une expérience qu'on peut transférer d'un pays africain à l'autre. Enfin, notre troisième panéliste est Kiranimai Mahanta, il vient de l'Inde. C'est le pays que souvent les pays africains regardent avec une certaine envie. Il est directeur d'une section Honeybee Network. Je crois que la plupart d'entre vous connaissent Honeybee Network. C'est une société spécialisée en innovation dans les différents domaines du secteur informel. Je crois que c'est quelque chose qui peut interpeller les Africains, quand on pense que dans la plupart de nos pays, l'informel présente plus de la moitié des revenus des populations. Donc, mais c'est quelque chose qui est lié aussi aux politiques gouvernementales parce que Honeybee définit des politiques d'innovation en se basant sur des études de terrain, mais sur l'observation empirique aussi. Et ces politiques sont proposées au gouvernement qui va les faire traduire en politique opérationnelle sur le terrain. Donc, il va nous en parler aussi. Notre dernier intervenant et José Alexandre Veracruz. Il est professeur spécialisé en économie, en politique de sciences, technologie et innovation. Il est membre du système national de recherche, membre de l'Académie des sciences du Mexique et aussi membre du conseil scientifique de l'Afrique, CALIX, donc il n'est pas des collectivités de l'Afrique. Il enseigne à l'Université autonomous métropolitaine à Mexico City. Il va nous parler des politiques d'innovation mises en place par le gouvernement mexicain. Dans cette séance, après l'intervention des panélistes qui va durer à peu près 10 minutes, vous aurez la parole, soit pour poser des questions pendant pas plus de 3 minutes, parce qu'il faut que tout le monde puisse s'exprimer, quitte à reposer d'autres questions, mais aussi, et c'est ça qui fait que vous êtes ici, puisqu'on parle de l'Afrique, de voir les leçons qu'on peut tirer de ces expériences des autres pays du Sud pour l'Afrique, de voir les échanges et les transferts de technologies d'innovation qui peuvent être opérés entre pays du Sud. Vous allez peut-être aussi vous exprimer, je le souhaite, sur les manières ou les méthodes innovantes de financement, d'innovation, parce que souvent, c'est la question qu'on entend en Afrique, mais comment financer? Peut-être que là aussi, il y a des situations assez innovantes où on n'a plus besoin de se retourner vers les bailleurs de fonds traditionnels. Voilà, la parole est aux panélistes, ensuite à vous la salle. Merci de m'avoir écouté.
Thanks for the introduction. Well, thanks. I would like to start thanking to the organizer of this summit, giving me the opportunity to present you. Thanks to all of you. I would like to start this presentation with some public policies that we have adopted in Chile, and then I would like to give a special briefing in Startup Chile, the program that I represent. So just to have a little view of how Chile and its economy, Chile has the highest GDP per capita in Latin America. Our target for 2020 is to become a developed country. That means $3,000 per capita. And we would like to become a developed country not just because of the money, but also because of all the positive cultural implications that has. Chile stands out for its reliability as a country for doing businesses in Latin America. We have a good environment, economic environment in terms of freedom, low levels of corruption, innovation, easy of doing businesses, etc. And we can say that we are a good platform for doing businesses in Latin America. As a government, our vision is to transform Chile into a pole or a hub of innovation and entrepreneurship in Latin America, and to be connected with different poles of innovation around the world. So we have, in some way, everything that's needed to be an entrepreneur and to start a business in Latin America, but we need a cultural shift to encourage Chileans to become entrepreneurs. We have recognized that in Chile we have a lot of talent people, but in the last decade we haven't seen a company, a multi-million-dollar company created. So we asked ourselves the question, why, if we have everything that is needed to be an entrepreneur, high potential entrepreneurship is not growing exponentially. And this is a very complex problem. So, as a government, we have our strategy is based in 2 pillars. From one side, we would like to generate more competitiveness. And for example, we have a new law for creating a company, so today you can incorporate a company in 1 day and for free, everything online. I remember today the Prime Minister of Ecuador told us that you have something similar here in this country. And also, the second pillar that our strategy has is to generate or to create critical mass, so to have an ecosystem that supports entrepreneurship. And in that case, we have this program, Startup Chile, that is the program that I will talk more about. So Startup Chile is a program from the Chilean government that seeks to attract early-phase, high-potential entrepreneurs from all over the world to start their businesses in Chile, using Chile as a platform to go global. Our principal challenges are, we can say, 3. Build up the startup community in Chile, to develop the colored market, and to connect entrepreneurs to the world. It sounds very easy, but it's pretty hard to attract entrepreneurs to the end of the world. We are very far away from here and from most of the country. So how we attract them? We offer them everything that an entrepreneur needs. So we give them 1-year visa, working visa. That this make a lot of noise, especially in the US for their immigration restrictions. We give them $40,000 without asking for any equity. So this money not just for their businesses, also for their life. We have also a soft landing and hospitality program, so we help the entrepreneurs to open a bank account that for a foreign could be pretty hard. We help them to get an ID card, everything in 1 week. We provide them a co-working space so everybody can work in the same place together, so they can have an office. We connect them with all the Latin American networks that we have. Also, we have good connections in the US with investors, access to the markets, Latin American markets, and we invite them to be part of this history-making opportunity. And well, this is one of the most important things of the program, because we want to change Chilean mindset and promote entrepreneurship and innovation. So what we ask in return to our entrepreneurs is to do social impact activities to promote entrepreneurship and innovation in Chile, and to show the Chileans that it is possible to start a business. They can do, for example, a motivational talk in a university or in a school, or if they know about the business model, they can do a canvas workshop in a university or a startup workshop, or any kind of event related with entrepreneurship. So, to be fast, about the results we can see so far, the program has 3 years. An ecosystem has been created in Chile, number 1. Number 2, Chile now is positioned in the entrepreneurship map. And also we can see some business results or economic results of the startup that we have mapped. In terms of the ecosystem, we have an active ecosystem in Chile. Not just national institutions, universities, municipalities, and foundations that have been executed in Chile. Also international, well-recognized companies that are starting to operate in Chile. Also, in terms of the ecosystem, for us, as I said, it's very important, the social impact that our entrepreneurs, talented entrepreneurs, generate in the community. So in total, they have done more than 3,000 activities all over Chile, not only the capital, and activities like our mentorings to Chilean entrepreneurs, meetups, conferences, and workshops, etc. And In total, more than 150,000 Chileans have attended to those activities. This is an example in a school or a talk in a university, and the good thing is that today more Chileans know about information. The second one is how Chile is positioned in the information map. Here you can see the number of outlets over the years. We have the publication in the Economist in 2012, and after that we saw an exponential growth in terms of the press coverage that we receive. And this is very important for us because we don't have any marketing budget. So how the work, the PR work that we do, is very important for us. Also, Chile has been seen for a lot of people from all over the world. We have received more than 10,000 applications. And we have selected more than 700 projects, startups, that we have found from more than 65 different countries. And I see here a great opportunity to invite entrepreneurs from Africa to apply to this program. Well, of course, young people, it's very welcome, but also people from any ages. We accept people from different ages. So I see a great opportunity to invite people. We have been recognized by different institutions as the Startup Genome ranking. Santiago is the top 20 city in the ranking, and also Santiago was recognized in the ranking, which is the global ecosystem report. About our economic results, for us it's very important that and we try to make sure that the companies that we fund maximize the probability of doing a good business and to grow as much as they can. So maybe this is not per se a signal of success, but at least it's a good signal. Our companies have raised more than $50 million. $50 million in private capital. 8 of our companies have been acquired by big corporations. Startups have been hiring people, so that's a good signal in terms of business results. And one of the most valuable things about the program is the community. Here you can find a very global and diverse of people from everywhere with different backgrounds, engineers, designers, marketers, etc. And so we encourage them to share their knowledge and experiences. And also not only among each other, but also with the Chilean community. So thank you very much. Okay, cool.
Merci à Madame Maria Calde. Problème de présentation. Ça marche pas. C'est là vous. Il n'est pas prêt, il y a un petit problème technique. En attendant, on va demander à M. José Alexandre Averafou de nous parler de l'exemple du métier.
In the last 10. Well, I'll start talking about a bit about national system of innovation, because actually this is the framework, the basic framework that is used in Mexico. I would say it is the main framework used everywhere when you talk about science, technology, innovation policy. The authors are very well known. And the definition of national system of innovation, I think, is good always to have a framework, so it's good to have a definition. It's a network of public and private institutions which activities and interactions contribute to the production, diffusion, and use of economic useful knowledge and improve innovation behavior of firms. The central idea of national system of innovation are that the agents there are systematic links between the agents. Which agents? Well, the agents are business firms, universities, research centers, national labs, government agencies, financial sector, etc. So, the idea is that firms don't innovate in isolation. They need a kind of framework, a kind of environment where they innovate. And this is central for the policy in Mexico, because what Mexico is trying to do is exactly has been trying is to put in place all these agents. What is the problem? With the agents, you don't make a system of innovation. You don't make real innovation to happen. You need interaction, linkage between these agents. And this is part of how to promote linkage is an important part of policy. What happens at aggregate level in terms of systems of innovation is not involve many what happens at aggregate level results from an interactive process at a micro and micro level. So systems of innovation crossing all the time, micro and micro level. And the focus usually is in business firms. This is something that sometimes we ask. This idea of national system of innovation is a framework that comes from experience of developed countries. And sometimes you ask, really, okay, firms are those that innovate, but maybe there are other agents or different wages of the agents in national system in a developed country and in developing countries. For instance, the role of the states in developing countries seems to be much more important than it is perhaps on developed countries. And sometimes we don't take this into account. So the idea is that the agents have different functions, several processes. Interactive learning is a part of this dynamic process of generation innovation. Many of the interactions are governed by non-market institutions, so not only market drives innovation, and you cannot leave the idea that the policy is don't do, the policy is not exactly what we can see in relation to innovation. The national system of innovation framework focus not only on R&D, but also there is a broader focus on innovation activities, including R&D. So R&D is part of, but is not the main part of the process of generating innovation. So for policymakers, we can say that a national system of innovation is a framework that sets a wide set of justifications for policy and a wider set of policy goals. Key aspects to deal with. National System of Innovation Framework deals with linking supply and demand of knowledge, financial effort of the government, the main sources of funding, focus on research, curiosity-driven research versus oriented research, number of innovative firms and expenditure in R&D. Sometimes you increase the number of firms in what happened in Mexico, but doesn't increase the expenditure of R&D, what means that firms that are becoming innovators, maybe they are innovating through more processes that don't involve R&D, but only maybe small changes, so incremental changes, but not. That doesn't mean that incremental changes are not important. For innovation, they are very important in incremental changes. Geographical and institutional distribution and regionalization is another aspect very important in the area of national systems. Let's go quickly to the Mexican system of innovation. What we can say, what happened in Mexico. Mexico has moved forward in the last 15 years. It has worked very hard to improve the framework conditions to facilitate innovation. This has been maybe the main line of policy in Mexico. It has built already, it has the required agents, but and the functions that are expected from a system of innovation, but there is a problem of linking the agents between them. So, also, there is a very small effort from the government. So we have 0.4 or 0.5 of the GDP in R&D, and this is very low from the government. When we have a law that says that the government must ensure at least 1% of GDP in R&D. So. Public sector remains the main source of funding because funds are not increasing very much there. And we will have also a high geographical and institutional concentration of the in the last 10 years or so, it has been made a lot of changes in the CONACYT is the National Council for Science and Technology. It was created in the 70s, and with that it started. No. Okay. In the last 10 years or so, CONACYT was created in the 70s, and with that started the state the state policy in science and technology. The state policy started in the 70s. And in the last 10 years, it has been made several changes in the laws, changing the law in 99, in 2000. And these changes were mainly directed to democratizing the process of science and technology innovation policy through creation of new agents. Advisory forums for science and technology was created an advisory forum for science and technology. This forum represents the communities of science and technology and is a voice of the science and technology for putting forward the proposals in terms of what is needed to do in terms of science and technology, so that there is a democratization of this process. It was created an STI council in each state, so it was, in terms of framework condition now in Mexico, we passed of having a very concentrated science and technology policy to have a more decentralized and to have the states participating. And, it was several other councils were created, an intersectorial committee for innovation. The leadership of the president was guaranteed by the creation of a general council for STI. All these have been done in the last 10 years with the aim to put in function the national system of innovation. What are the main elements of the STI policy? Quality and pertinence of R&D is promotion of innovation, promote interaction and coordination between the national system of innovation agents, commitments to regionalization. This has been the rationale of the policy. The results, I would say, let's go quickly to the results. We have a large number of funds that have been created to finance science problems of basic research applied to the national problems. The sectoral funds are because the budget not only the council have a budget but also the ministries, so it was integrated, the action of the ministries with the policy, and that allow a better management of regionalization of funds, scholarships. Mexico have invested very heavily in the human resources through scholarships. In the beginning, 30 years ago, these scholarships were mainly given to study abroad. The policy is to improve the quality of the research inside Mexico and prevent innovation by climate. Also, it has been designed a set of instruments. Particularly, I would like to tell you something about this instrument. This is a kind of modular instrument that tries to support the firm in different levels, in different stages of the project. Usually, you have only one instrument but when you have in a single instrument all these modules, so you can be much more flexible. This is very helpful. We have other instruments that have been developed, and the positive impacts have been improving of the framework condition, reorganization of the STI budget, foster the articulate. So, almost thank you for your attention.